Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to have a little bit of a look at what is going on with the artwork rares from Paldea Evolved, because this doesn't make a huge amount of sense. And honestly, right, we might as well start off with Magikarp. Now, I've mentioned Magikarp in a couple of videos, but Magikarp is really the poster child for this doesn't make sense. Magikarp is an $80 card. Now, it has, I suppose, thankfully started to level off a little bit. Yeah. But Magikarp's an $80 card. It is an artwork rare, and it's an $80 card. As I showed you in a video the other day, Magikarp somehow is the second most expensive card in the entire set, behind only Iono, the special illustration rare. It is the only card other than Iono, the special illustration rare, that gets above $50, and it's just an ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill artwork rare. That's weird, ladies and gentlemen. That's weird. I mean, to use another example, we could go and have a look at Scarlet and Violet. I don't think it's fair to look at any sets before Scarlet and Violet, because although they did have kind of trainer gallery and all of that, it's not exactly the same, and I don't think it's particularly fair. So I'm going to be sticking to just the Scarlet and Violet era. I think that's the best way to do it. And if we have a look at Scarlet and Violet, the most expensive artwork rare we see in the entire set is the $15 routes. $15, that's a reasonable amount. But bearing in mind, when I say it's a reasonable amount, you've got to remember that Gardevoir, especially going into the Paldea Evolved format, is one of the very, 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 very best decks in the game. Now, it didn't win Japan Championships, so take it with a pinch of salt, but it did, get up into the top cut and the top 8 and all of that. It is one of the presumptive best decks in the game. And Routes is the basic Pokemon that evolves into it, and this is the artwork rare, so it's gone up to $15. That makes sense to me. $15 for an artwork rare is high, but it's the artwork rare that's the basic for the EX that is the best deck in the game, or at least one of the very best decks in the game. So fine, I understand. But humorously enough, Curlier isn't that high. So, Routes might be up there at $15 and lovely and all of that, but Curlier's stuck on, around about a $10 card, maybe you could argue up to $12, because of course, the best Curlier isn't the one from Scarlet and Violet. The best Curlier is the one from Silver Tempest that's got refinement, which is that draw power. So even Curlier doesn't really get up that high. So then we go back to Magikarp and we go, mate, this is not an $80 card. Although it is an $80 card. And then we ask the question of what's going on. Now, whenever I look at this kind of stuff, whenever I see a card that's doing this, I go straight over to Japan. Because Japan basically have the same cards that we do. So, a card which is just absolutely ballooning in value over here should be ballooning in value over in Japan. It's not. Magikarp over in Japan is not ballooning in value. Sorry. It's not hideously cheap. It's still number one amongst the artwork rares. And if it's number one amongst the artwork rares in Japan, then it should be number one among the artwork rares over here. That is perfectly understandable. But we're talking a $20 card, which is really high for an artwork rare. It's just been pushed to the extreme over here. And one explanation is basically people have just pushed it up. And that happens sometimes. It happened in Lost Origin with the alternate art of Aerodactyl. It happened in Astral Radiance with the alternate art of Machamp. Neither of those cards, there are certain things that will push up a value of a card. If the Pokemon is especially popular, if it is especially rare, if it is especially playable. They're the three main factors that will push it up. None of those were present. We could look at something like Giratina. Now that makes perfect sense, because Giratina V-Star is hideously playable. It's one of the best decks in the game. So the Giratina V, that makes sense that would be a card that really jumped up in value. But neither Machamp nor Aerodactyl made a huge amount of sense there. And they weren't that expensive over in Japan. And sure, like, I know people love the Magikarp artwork. And the Magikarp artwork's amazing. But not $80 artwork rare amazing. However, this is the part of the video where I explain that actually there is and I don't think this is a good enough explanation, let's be clear, but there is a tangible reason why the artwork rares might be more expensive in English than they are in Japanese. Now, if we look at Paldea Evolved is comprised of 3 Japanese sets. The double set Snow Hazard and Clayburst, and the mini set, A set, subset, call it what you will, Triple Beat. And each of those sets has 12 artwork rares, and boxes for each of those sets have 3 artwork rares in. Which means any artwork rare in Japan is going to appear roughly 1 in every 4 boxes. That's generally the way it goes. Magikarp comes from Triple Beat. There are 12 artwork rares in Triple Beat. You're going to get 3 per box. So on average, you will get a Magikarp 1 in every 4 boxes of Triple Beat. However, Paldea Evolved has 36 artwork rares in, because it's got all 12 from all of the 3 sets. But it's still 3 per box. For some reason, we've kept the Japanese 3 per box when it comes over here. Which means that you are not going to be getting a Magikarp every 4 boxes. You're going to be getting a Magikarp every 12 boxes. It's 3 times as rare. Because again, you've got the same number per box, but you've got 3 times as many that are out there and available. And on the one hand, this is an explanation. The artwork rares are considerably more rare over here, 3 times as rare in fact, as they are over in Japan. And to be fair, Japanese booster boxes are smaller and cheaper, so you could say they're not actually 3 times as rare, they're more than 3 times as rare. And this would be a good explanation if this was the only factor. But we can look at Scarlet and Violet. Now, to be fair, Scarlet and Violet had 24 artwork rares, not 36. So we're talking twice as rare as Japanese equivalents rather than 3 times. But this didn't happen with Scarlet and Violet. We did not see this weird price explosion for artwork rares in Scarlet and Violet. Didn't happen. And if it was just they are proportionately rarer over here than they were in Japan, then it should have happened in Scarlet and Violet and carried on in Paldea Evolved, not just happened in Paldea Evolved. But we can also look at the prices of these cards, and they don't make sense. So Magikarp is an $80 card. That's dumb. Tyranitar is a $30 card. Well, it's Tyranitar and it's got lovely artwork and it's big and imposing and all of that. But it's still not a playable card, so it's a $30 card. And then, like, Raichu's a $25 card. And then there's a massive drop-off. So we basically say, well, the Magikarp's got amazing art, let's bump that one up. And the Tyranitar's got amazing art, let's bump that one up. And look, Raichu is Raichu, alright? So let's bump that one up. But then not the others? Like Fuecoco, as far as I'm concerned, artwork rares in the set, boom, Fuecoco. Although I do need to give a shout out to Orthworm with the Okacheke artwork. And then I'm kind of in an internal struggle of, what do I prefer, the Okacheke artwork of Orthworm or the Fuecoco-ness of Fuecoco? It's a tough choice. They're both stunning. But Fuecoco's like a $10 card. And Fuecoco's a first partner Pokemon. It's really popular. Like, Baxcalibur is a phenomenal card that's going to see a huge amount of play. Is already seeing a bunch of play and success. That's a $12 card. It's half of Raichu. And it's really hyper-playable. I should say prices here are from TCG Play, eBay, places like that. Using TCG Player as a starting point and then going around and having a look elsewhere. But then you can keep going and you can find some ridiculously cheap artwork rares. So, you know, the Orthworm I mentioned earlier, $3.50. The Graphite with a lovely Kato artwork, $3. This adorable Rookidee, $2.50. Well, if the explanation here, if the proper explanation was, Wassy, the pull rates on these are well low, that's spiking prices, I would get that. But some of them are remaining super crazy hyper cheap, like we would expect, and others are being massively pushed up. And we are left with the explanation that I don't really want. And the explanation basically is, people have decided that some of these are worth pumping up and have pumped them up. I would be willing to accept the they're much rarer than they are in Japan argument, but that argument didn't work with Scarlet and Violet, and it doesn't work with most of these cards. I would accept the they're hyper playable argument, except they're not, because the hyper playable ones and Excalibur aren't jumping up. Honestly, Magikarp and Tyranitar, they're fairly popular Pokemon with stunning artwork, but in the past, that has not been enough. And maybe this is the new normal. Maybe now every set, or every other set, we're going to pick a card or two with stunning artwork and elevate it well above the value we would expect given the price in Japan, etc. Maybe that's just the new normal. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, things is weird, and these don't make a huge amount of sense. And now I've explained it. I haven't really explained it, let's be honest, but I've given you the best explanation I can with the information we've got. Right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's over to you guys. Have you pulled these artwork rares? Which ones have you pulled? Which ones do you want? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy. That's where we talk about Pokemon and card games and all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, all kinds of fun things. And of course, you can get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely William Shaw, who's been a supporter of ours for a couple of months now. Seems to be a very lovely person, so shout-out to them for the support and the apparent loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.